All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, April 26th, 2016. And this is Before the First Cup of Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is 38 degrees, wet and overcast here in upstate New York. It still feels like spring, but smells a little bit like snow. So, where did we leave off yesterday? We titled the show Internet of Things, Smart Dust, Sensors, Analytics, Neural Nets, and Artificial Intelligence. And yeah, we talked about all those things. We dug into some recent news about smart dust and how smart dust actually could become even more dangerous than some of these other technologies once they make it smart. And, we always talk about the coming of the intelligent robots and artificial intelligence and learning in the cloud, but they don't have to be big scary robots. They could just be connections of everything down to a cellular level, but everything around you all being connected to some sort of intelligence cloud. And I talked about HP and years back when I worked as an HP engineer. And reading, knowing about HP working on smart dust back in the 90s. And I'm going to tell you, it took me a couple long, hard hours doing searches, getting very frustrated and questioning my own memory because it almost appears that HP from 2010 and before had no reference of them working on smart anything. But I know that we knew about it because my one friend and I used to postulate about it back in those days at work. So I remember it specifically, but lo and behold, the wonders of the internet. I found a scanned copy of Computer World, which was that big magazine that all of us techs used to get. It was actually a free subscription if you worked in the industry. It always kept up on the news. I'm going to read this right now because I knew this. It's from March 1st, 1999, called Wising Up on Smart Materials. Tiny processor transceivers may soon do everything from increasing data storage to earthquake-proofing buildings. Smart tires, smart skis, smart paints, even smart dust. Now, mind you, this is 1999. Even smart dust, computers are going everywhere, it seems. Tiny systems of sensors, actuators, processors, and communication devices, loosely called smart materials, are finding their way into places that may radically alter the way people interact with the physical world. We are seeing the end of inert matter, asserts Paul Saffos, a director at the Institute of the Future in Menlo Park, and I think we've run across him just recently, so he must still be there. We'll put computers into things that nobody ever thought of before, he says. Smart matter often contains micro electromechanical systems, or MEMS, so that's even the same technology. Tiny devices at the intersection of materials and computer science. And some of them are likely to come to the aid of information technology professionals. For example, Teonix Inc. in Ithaca, New York, which is in a little bit east, is working on high-density storage devices that will put more than 1,000 read heads on a device that is just 1 square centimeter and 1 millimeter thick. A tiny probe rides so close to the data that it feels the intermolecular forces, says Timothy Davis, research vice president. In about 18 months, the first working prototype will be able to store 60 gigs per square inch. Well, where is that project? I don't think I ever saw that project come out or heard of it. I bet you anything the feds commandeered that one. 60 gigs, 60 gigabits for a square inch. Or maybe they're using that technology in the new hard drives. I don't know, but that's the first I've heard about that one. and it will scale to hundreds of times that density, according to Davis and others. Commercialization should follow in 3 to 5 years. So that would have been already like 2004 or 2005 that should have been out. But here we go, and this is ding ding. Hewlett Packard is also developing high-density probe storage devices, according to HP researcher Charles Morehouse. The emphasis is on portability, low power, and small size, he says. But we don't know what they will cost yet. Nobody does. That was in 1999. They were working on this stuff. On a project at the University of Berkeley, California, researchers are working with a major disk drive maker to boost the storage of conventional disks as much as 40 gigabits per square inch and 10 times what's possible today. And what's interesting is that they're using these MEMS and these sensors and then building all the storage because, they're going to be collecting data from everybody. The storage will be enabled by read-write heads positioned with unprecedented accuracy by MEMS devices riding on them, and a working prototype has been built, says a spokeswoman for the Defense Advanced Project Research Agency, ding ding, which has partially funded the work. So didn't I call yesterday that I didn't actually have any proof that HP was working with DARPA on any of this material, any of the smart dust, and it didn't come out until 2010 in all those stories I was reading yesterday that DARPA got involved. But I knew that it was way earlier than that. Like I said, I remember having distinct conversations about smart dust and the implications back in the 90s while a tech at work. So here we go. HP's name comes out, bing, then DARPA's name comes out, and this research has been going on a lot longer than we thought. All right, so I queued up a video that if anybody heard the rebrew yesterday, it was at the end because you know that it started out like a Monday and I had to edit the show to get rid of the beginning of the show from Friday, but I used it for filler. But I'd like to play it because it sounds like it's from Discovery or something. Oh, wow, I don't even have the hiss. So wait, let me double check. Looks like I'm connected without a hiss. All right, let me see about my volume. I want to play this little video about smart dust. Oh, here we go.
There we go.
I forgot every time I play on this machine.
Hold on.
Let's
try the other browser.
But in every city will be intelligence. Because every street and every building will have a network of microcomputers built right into them. Dr. Chris Piester calls it smart dust.
A smart dust particle or mote is a wireless sensor with sensing, computation, communication, and power in one package.
These are very small.
The size of a mote today is about the size of a grain of rice. And we've shown that we can make the circuitry small enough and light enough that eventually it will be possible to make things that are on a sub-millimeter size scale.
Tiny specks of computer smart dust will form a vast invisible network that can help manage the infrastructure.
Take power and basically
these tiny computers record information surroundings, information they can send to other computers or monitoring so you know if it's running late. Calls will be reported and car. Never have to wear a radio.
During the flow, you alert. This is the right way to.
Oh, this is so frustrating because this stuff all used to work and then it just didn't one day. Hold on. I'm going to say, screw this. I'm not giving up now. I downloaded this this clip yesterday, so we're going to see if I can find it here quick. There it is. We're going to play it direct from my desktop. I'm just going to stay chill. Here it comes.
But in the future, every square inch of every city will be alive with intelligence. Because every street and every building will have a network of microcomputers built right into them. Dr. Keister calls it smart dust.
A smart dust particle or mote is a wireless sensor with sensing, computation, communication, and power in one package.
These all-in-one microcomputers will be small, very small.
The size of a mote today is about the size of a grain of rice. And we've shown that we can make the circuitry small enough and light enough that eventually it will be possible to make things that are on a sub-millimeter size scale.
Tiny specks of computer smart dust will form a vast invisible network that can help manage the infrastructure of even the largest city.
Smart cities of the future will take the low power, small technology and basically distribute it everywhere.
These tiny computers record information about their surroundings, information they can send to other computers or to you. Smart dust on the tracks will monitor your commuter train so you know if it's running late. Potholes will be able to report themselves and warn your car, and you'll never have to wait for a radio traffic report again.
They're monitoring the flow of traffic and giving you alerts about what route is the right way to go to keep the moving.
Switches will get a king of smart dust particles that can warn us when they detect stress fractures, helping avoid deadly collapses. But smart dust will also allow buildings and streets to recognize you and respond accordingly.
I think increasingly the environment will respond to who we are and adapt in consequence.
The city will know where you are if you want it to.
Your workplace will know you. Smart dust at the entrance will boot up your computer. And smart dust embedded in the elevator doors will automatically ring your floor.
And lock you in.
Sense the environment and allow us to improve the way that we live our lives.
No matter how we live in the future city, it will be...
Yeah, talk about damn scary. So it'll recognize you, and we're going to have sensors everywhere, even in the largest city. Don't worry about it because it's all for your own good. It's going to make things smart, and it's going to make things know you. Well, if you dig into what Hewlett Packard's project is, it's called the Central Nervous System for Earth. Yeah, it is. And back in... I did find a story just before 2010. It was in 2009 talking about HP using the central nervous system for Earth to get a clearer picture of oil and gas reserves. They were going to use it, of course, with the Department of Energy. And we've run into a lot of that. Synthetic biology and nanotech and the Department of Energy and even the Brain Monitoring Center. The Department of Energy is in the middle of all of this, but back in 2010, HP did, I don't know if they actually did an interview with CNN or if CNN itself just did this story, but they did an expose on the central nervous system, and they said that they were going to be, hold on, I'm going to have to find this here quick. Smart dust aims to monitor everything. In the 1990s, we read all about him, a researcher named Chris Pfister, or Pister, I would think it would be Pfister, but there's no F in there. Dreamed up a wild future in which people would sprinkle the earth with countless tiny sensors no larger than a grain of rice, and these smart dust particles, as he calls them, would monitor everything. And Pfister was the one that was working with DARPA, by the way, fitted with computer power, sensing equipment, wireless radios, and long battery life. The smart dust would make observations and relay mountains of real-time data about people, cities, and natural environment. Well, now a version of Pister smart dust fantasy, whoa, is starting to become a reality. It is exciting. It's been a long time in coming. And yes, it has been. Like I said, it has been at least since the late 90s. Now, he's saying that he coined the term 14 years ago. Well, maybe they copyrighted it or trademarked it back then, but we were calling it smart dust back in the 90s. Says it may not be exactly how he envisioned it, but there has been progress. The latest news comes from the computer and printing company Hewlett-Packard, which recently announced that it is now working on a project called the Central Nervous System for Earth. Now, they announced this on May 3rd of 2010, but we read that Computer World article. It happened to be from March 1st, 1999. It's just amazing how they just started working on this central nervous system for Earth. I knew, I don't know if they're just trying to scrub history or what, but do some searches. It was very, very difficult to find any reference to HP in regards to this at all. But I mean, this was something that they had all been talking about. This is something that was happening in all the backroom labs at all the tech companies back already almost 20 years ago. That's why I think that this isn't just a new thing that they're like, oh, maybe we'll try it someday. I think that they've already been trying it, and that some of this is already out there. That's probably coming next generation now as this new push, as we have not only the Internet of Things, but we have nanotechnology. And some of the stuff that I was just reading earlier yesterday have been talking about now. Some of the new stuff is, yes, HP and some of their central nervous system now with the advent of nanotechnology and how cheap everything is. This will be cake. Don't worry about it. So anyway, HP is working on a project in 2010 called the Central Nervous System for Earth. And in the coming years, the company plans to deploy 1 trillion sensors all over the planet. Now, 6 years has gone by. You think that's been done? Who knows? Who knows? I'm going to guess yes. I have all kinds of ideas as to what's going on, but I haven't seen a big announcement saying we've deployed 1 trillion smart sensors all over the planet to surveil you. Have you? No, I haven't seen a headline that said that yet, but that doesn't mean anything. Of course. Wireless devices would check to see if our ecosystems are healthy. Now, I'm going to guess that the day that it does get announced that it's been out there or they're going to do it or whoops, we're going to do it, but they really did it a long time ago, is all going to be in the name of climate change. So if you notice, as we start reading through here, they start talking about how they can monitor environmental conditions and temperatures and water supply and whether or not the environment is healthy. So climate change, again, has been used for a lot of different things, but now it's going to be used for the total surveillance grid. The wireless devices, here we go, would check to see if the ecosystems are healthy. It could detect earthquakes more rapidly. It could predict traffic patterns and monitor energy use. The idea is that accidents could be prevented and energy could be saved if people knew more about the world in real time, instead of when workers check on these issues only occasionally. HP will take its first step toward this goal in about 2 years. That would have been 2012, says Pete Hartwell, the senior researcher at HP Labs in Palo Alto, California. And remember, they're right in the lizard's den in California. You got DARPA and what's the lab? I always forget. Los Alamos? No, blah, blah, blah. Whichever that lab is. I always forget the name of it. I always mix it up with the one in New Mexico. But it's where they do a lot of the DARPA research. It's where IBM just took their brain-inspired computer to go play with. We have the entire University of California university system there that is in bed with DARPA and sprinkle funding, and good old Manit Napolitano is now the president of the university system. So it all makes sense. The company, HP, has also made plans with Royal Dutch Shell, ding, ding, to install 1 million matchbook-sized monitors to aid in oil exploration by measuring rock vibrations and movements. Those sensors, which already have been developed, will cover a 6-mile-wide area. That will be the largest smart dust deployment to date. So, see, they have deployed some of it. These are a little bit bigger, but it's out there. They've been testing, and that was already in 2010. And like I said, we know this stuff happens in back rooms long before we ever find out about it, and out in the deserts. Says it will be the largest smart dust deployment to date. So it doesn't say it's the first. It just says it's the largest. And we just think now that the technology has reached the point where it makes basic sense for us to get this out of the lab and into reality, says Hartwell from HP. Guys, that was in 2010. Smart dust minus the dust. Despite the recent excitement, there is still much confusion in the computing industry as to exactly what smart dust is. For starters, the sensors being deployed and developed today are much larger and clunkier than flecks of dust. HP sensors, which are accelerometers like those in the iPhone and the Droid, but are about 1,000 times more powerful, about the size of matchbooks. When they're enclosed in a metal box for protection, they're about the size of a VHS tape. Now let's fast forward 6 years into the future. I don't think, honestly, guys, I really remember they always downplay this shit, and they're like, oh, don't worry about it. Yep, look, it's big and clunky. So there isn't going to be covert shit everywhere you won't be able to see while we're surveilling you. No! You know, I mean, it's just so obvious when they make statements like this to doubly ensure you understand that it's not like your imagination says. Well, even if it wasn't at that time, and I'm still going to call bullshit on that, it probably is now. And some of the more recent stuff that I've read and all the stuff that we've done on nanotechnology tells me that it no longer is imaginary. So what makes smart dust sensors different from a weather station or a traffic monitor? Well, size is one factor. Smart dust sensors must be relatively small and portable, but technology has not advanced far enough to manufacture the sensors on a scale of millimeters for commercial use, although Berkeley researchers are trying to make one that is a cubic millimeter. And, you know, I just saw something very recently that they have come out with that cubic millimeter one. I have now alerts for DARPA, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, nanoparticles, and smart something. And this just came through. By the way, don't do all those, because now my mailbox is just every day I have like 30 new messages, so just loaded with stories. But that just came out just recently, this 1 cubic millimeter sensor. Wireless connectors are a big distinguisher too, and a building's thermostat is most likely hardwired. Now remember, this was 2010. Not anymore. Google bought that nest, and we have wireless smart thermostats. A smart dust sensor might gauge temperature, but it would be battery powered, and it would communicate wirelessly and to the internet and with other sensors. So this is, you know, smart home, smart everything. This is all a part of it. Sheer number of sensors in the network is what truly makes a smart dust project different from other efforts to record data about the world. Smart dust researchers tend to talk in the millions, billions, and trillions. And some say reality has diverged so far from the smart dust concept that it is time to dump the term in favor of something a little less sexy, like wireless sensor networks or meshes, are terms that'll find greater acceptance with researchers. This one researcher named Estrin said it is important to ditch the idea that smart dust sensors would be disposable. Sensors have to be designed for specific purposes and spread out on the land intentionally, not scattered in the wind as smart dust was initially pitched. And despite these differences, researchers say that the smart dust theory that monitoring everything will benefit humanity remains essentially unchanged. Now, let me stop for a minute. I don't know if Mr. Joe Friday is in chat at all, but I wanted to point out something that when we started reading that smart dust was made of MEMS, Joe Friday had sent me a story probably about 6 months ago about MEMS, memristors, that they were working on developing. And it was when we started digging into luciferase. Remember that? It was a protein. And they had made these MEMS. And luciferase was the fluorescent, it glows. It's a fluorescent protein that they can use as a bio tracker in things to be able to see where it goes. But and they'd utilized this luciferase in these MEMS, and they had built little legs. They built little legs on these devices, and I don't remember if this was actually mechanical or if it was a DNA MEM, where they're building these little DNA nanobots now, but the thing got legs, and it walked, and it looked like, and they had it under this electron microscope, it looked like a freaking mech warrior, okay? It had legs, and it was walking. So if you heard what they just said, and we know that smart dust has been built out of MEMS, because we've read that 3 or 4 times now, this researcher at Berkeley says that we don't want them to be carried on the wind and distributed without intentionality. We want to be able to place them somewhere. Well, if in the last 6 years since this article was written, they've developed MEMS with legs, making them into little mini bots that can walk around and have all these real-time sensors at a minuscule package that maybe even can be at a nano scale. I don't know. This is going to require definitely more digging into how smart dust is merging with nanotech. But guys, I think it absolutely is. Smart dust was the interim. Remember, I told you that. This is where they started in the 90s moving out, and we are now at the nano scale. But it's all about the Internet of Things. It's about the Internet of Things at the DNA level eventually, when they can get there to monitor everything. They want to monitor and control everything is the point. Whether or not you like it, whether or not you know it, it's coming. Despite these differences, the researchers say that the smart dust theory that monitors everything will benefit humanity, but it essentially remains unchanged. There are a number of real-world projects that, in one way or another, seek to use wireless sensors to take Earth's vital signals. Wireless sensors currently monitoring farms, factories, data centers, and bridges to promote efficiency and understanding of how these systems work, researchers said in interviews. And in all these cases, so they were already out there in 2010, maybe bigger, size of a VHS, but already out there. And in all these cases, the sensor networks are deployed for a specific purpose. For example, a company called Streetline has installed 12,000 sensors on parking spots and highways in San Francisco. And the sensors don't know everything that's going on in those parking spots, but they are equipped with magnetometers to sense whether or not a huge metal object, i.e. a car, is sitting in that spot. The data will soon be available to people who can use it to figure out where to park, says Streetline CEO, and it also tells the cities if the meters have expired. So send out Rita, have her go write some tickets. It also tells cities that if the meters have expired and other sensors are equipped to measure vibrations in factories and oil refineries to spot machine problems and inefficiencies before they cause trouble. Still others might pick up data about temperature, chemistry, or sound, and tiny cameras or radars that can be tacked onto data collecting networks to detect the presence of people or vehicles. And the power of these networks is that eventually they can all be connected. And that's what we talked about yesterday. The danger of the Internet of Things is connecting these all together into a network and then putting them into the cloud and applying artificial intelligence. So the Internet of Things becomes enchanted. They become intelligence, each of these dust motes, and they understand us. Color says, interesting, his name is Color. Color spelled C-U-L-L as in killing, Color. Caller says the development of these wireless sensor networks is analogous to the creation of the World Wide Web. And what is being created with smart dust is a real world web, he says, as it draws closed and traps us all like flies. He says, we're still early on in that progression, but don't worry about it because it's coming. Yes, and the Big Brother effect, well, even deployed for science or for the public, still people get that Big Brother feeling, you think? The uncomfortable sense of being under constant secret surveillance from the idea of putting trillions of monitors all over the world. Guys, this isn't CNN, okay? It is a very, very, very huge privacy invasion because we are talking about very, very small sensors that can be undetectable effectively, says Lee Tian, an attorney at the Electronic Frontier Foundation. And, you know, I was even thinking back when I first started reading about smart dust, is if they just deployed this stuff and let it go airborne, which is how originally they were talking about doing it. Maybe they already did, and it didn't work too well because it all got stuck in clumps against a fence or something. But I was thinking that if this stuff was so small that it was like specks of dust, it would also get on your shoes and on your clothing, maybe if you were in the right place at the right time, and it could follow you home. Like, what would happen if then it was all in your house, or if that is the plan? It's very frightening to me. You know, they're doing so many mad science experiments right now, and we don't know about probably 99.99% of them. Anyway, back to this attorney for the Electronic Frontier Foundation. He says they are in such numbers that you really can't do anything about them in terms of easy countermeasures. Right, you can't run and you can't hide. But that does not mean that researchers should stop working on smart dust. But they should be mindful of privacy as the work progresses, he says. Yeah, like they give a shit. No, they don't care about your privacy. That's what they want to get into. They want to probe and pry into every private moment so they can use it at some point in the future to prove that you're defective, because they're going to need that when those of us who don't go along with the plan become thorns in the side. Okay? So they need that. Nobody's going to be mindful of your privacy. Trust me. Maybe on the public side, but not on the back end. Pfister says that the wireless frequencies that smart dust sensors use to communicate, which were kind of like Wi-Fi, have security built into them. So the data is public only if the person or company that installed the sensor wants it to be. He says, yeah, well, that's just like the rest of the internet. So I'm still going to say bullshit to that. Clearly, there are security concerns and privacy concerns, he continued. And the good news is that when the radio technology was being developed for this stuff, it was shortly after all the big concerns about Wi-Fi security. And we have all the security tools we need underneath to make this information private. Right. Well, that's all been hacked. And now DARPA's on the case. So don't worry about it because they'll take care of it all. Further privacy concerns may arise if another vision for smart dust comes true. Some researchers are looking into making mobile phones into sensors. Ding, ding, that already happened. In this scenario, billions of people roaming the earth with cell phones will become the quote-unquote smart dust. Now, remember, we talked about that. This really does put us as part of the Internet of Things. Biosensors is something that they're talking about next. And something I wanted to mention back with biosensors and smart dust is I really believe in some of the research that I read back in the day that some of this they had already been experimenting with places like New York City after 9/11, when they were putting biosensors at the top of telephone poles that were very, very tiny and able to sense environmental conditions and literally sniff things to detect if something was in the environment. There's no reason why they couldn't put that into smartphones. And I'll tell you, the last time I was looking at, because my phone does these weird things where it acts up for a long time, like my phone has been hacked and I get all paranoid. But then I think if I go get a new phone, it's going to have even more spyware on it than it potentially does now, because this thing's probably already got to be 4 or 5 years old. And I noticed that in all the new Androids, did you know that they have nano coatings on them? Nano coatings, so they're completely waterproof. You could drop them into a pool and they'll be okay. And I started to wonder, what else? Great, yay, they're going to sell it to me that it's a waterproof phone with nano crap on it. But what else is in that phone with nano crap? Because who knows? Who absolutely knows? And I know I'm sounding paranoid, but I'm not. Okay, we do mad science on a daily basis, and I don't think there's anything that is out of bounds now that you can imagine. Anyway, so yes, we'll become the smart dust, or more affectionately known now in 2016 as endpoints of the Internet of Things. Smart dust researchers say that their theory of monitoring the world with trillions of sensors, however it is realized, will benefit the people and the environment. Ding, 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 ding. More information is better information, says Pister. And having more sensors improves efficiency of a system and reduces the demand and waste. So all of that is just straight goodness. Well, if you believe that, dude, you just drank too much Kool-Aid. Hartwell, the HP researcher, says that the only way people can combat huge problems like, oh, here it comes, climate change. Yes, so HP was all on the climate change bandwagon, is to have more information about what is going on. And frankly, I think that we have to do it from a sustainability and an environmental standpoint, he says. And even though the first application of HP's central nervous system for the Earth will be a commercial project, and yeah, nonetheless for the oil industry. So how's that helping the climate there, HP? Hartwell says that the motives behind Smart Dust are all altruistic. Yeah, we were working with DARPA. No. We're not in the lizard's den, Palo Alto, California. No, it's all altruistic and to save the planet. And he says, when people ask me what my job is, I say, well, I am going to save the world. Ding, 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 ding. Wah. So what do you think of them apples? I knew somewhere in there that my memory had not failed me. HP is right in the lizard's den, and it has been going on since at least the 90s. All right, so we read a story yesterday about artificial intelligence and the Internet of Smart Things, and AI getting its hands on all this data from trillions of sensors spread across the planet, in the environment, inside us, monitoring everything. At the very end of that story, there was a paragraph titled, "Will we design our own executioner?" Despite being fully cognizant about our unpredictability, we are adept at taking strategic shortcuts at times, which makes it abundantly clear that it is our ecological smartness and creativity that has gotten us to where we are now. And the problem is not so much that the machines will play chess, but it's also that we have overzealous ambition to win at any cost. Ding, ding, ding. That's the 180 miles an hour toward a brick wall that is going to kill us all if we're not careful. AI, like other forms of modern technology, can go on to become incredibly beneficial for us, yes, or not. And whether or not that happens in the realm of conjectures, given the inevitable human tendency to misuse just about anything that makes our lives easier. And that is my point. We do. I don't trust these people as far as I could kick them. I don't want to give it up to the machine because they're not going to use that for benevolent purposes at all. You know they're not. So anybody who can sit there and try and argue with me that this is for the good of the planet or it's for the good of healthcare because it's going to make healthcare cheaper and they'll be able to diagnose us with disease long before it causes us any problems with nanobots in your blood, go take a jump because I don't want to hear it. But as responsible developers of technology, we may want to ensure that our comfort-driven instincts do not take precedence over our larger commitment to inclusive economic growth, more compassionate societies, and a better world at large. Yeah. Oh, wah. And then who comes into the picture but good old Ray Kurzweil? And so let's talk about Ray now. Ray Ray did an interview with Playboy, which I thought was kind of funny in and of itself. But even funnier was his title. Ray Kurzweil talks to Playboy about living forever and how technology will transform sex. This is from April 20th of 2016. Ray Kurzweil, the author, inventor, computer scientist, futurist, and Google employee, shares more of his thoughts on technology and how it will radically impact our lives and extend them indefinitely in a compelling new Playboy interview. Kurzweil, 68, sat down with contributing editor David Hochman, who said, quote, talking to Ray is a little like chatting with Einstein, Mr. Spock, and the guys at Google all at once. His intelligence is off the charts. He knows everything about everything, and it's all filtered through the lens of whatever is at the forefront of the wired world, and I'd say wireless as well. What is at the forefront of the not-so-distant future, according to Kurzweil, is how technology will make us smarter and healthier. And because it's Playboy, Kurzweil discusses how technology will also change the way we have sex. Some highlights from the interview on how technology will make us smarter. Quote, and this is Ray, we have a limited capacity in our brains, and it is at least 1 million times slower than computational electronics. The part of our brain where we do our thinking is called the neocortex, and by the 2030s, we will have nanobots that can go into a brain non-invasively through the capillaries to connect to our neocortex and basically connect it to a synthetic neocortex that works the same way in the cloud. Ding, ding, ding. We will create more profound forms of communication than we are familiar with today, more profound music and funnier jokes. Of course, it's going to make us all philosophers as well. We will be funnier, we will be sexier, and we will be more adept at expressing loving sentiments. And we're approaching a point where technological progress will become so fast that everyday human intelligence will be unable to follow it. It is a horizon past which the concepts we're familiar with are so transformed that it is hard to see past it. And, you know, I can see that happening already. One thing that I've always prided myself being able to do is to follow things that move quickly and that have concepts in them that maybe are kind of difficult, but I have like this way to visualize things that makes things for me easier to understand. And I am having a lot of difficulty keeping up and connecting how all these dots connect on a daily basis. And it's been probably the last 6, 8, 10 months that it's really gotten to the speed where it's extremely overwhelming for me now. And I haven't felt that before. So it's a different thing for me. And I can see that it's going to get worse. I mean, I need to go go get my degree in genetics or something to keep going at the rate we're going with this CRISPR technology and stuff. So the next bullet point on how technology will make us healthier. Well, we are starting to reprogram the outdated software of life, he says. The 23,000 little programs that we have in our bodies called genes. And we are programming them away from disease and away from aging. By the 2020s, which reminds you, 2020 is 4 years from now, we will start using nanobots to complete the job of the immune system. And that was that DARPA project that we were talking about, that they will have these little nanobots in your blood that can shapeshift and morph, evolve with viruses. This is kind of the next generation of that universal flu vaccine that they were talking about in 2006 at that FEMA class I was at. And they want to put that stuff in your blood. Synthetic immune system is what they were calling it. And here goes Ray in the 2020s. We'll be using nanobots to complete the job of the immune system. And as they gain traction in the 2030s, nanobots in the bloodstream will destroy pathogens, remove debris, rid our bodies of blood clots, clogs, tumors, correct DNA errors, and reverse the aging process. I believe that we will reach a point around 2029 when medical technologies will add 1 additional year every year to your life expectancy. On the future of sex, Ray says, and wait till you get this one, not only will people be able to have sex together in different locations, but you will have the ability, ding, ding, to change who you are and who your partner is. In virtual reality, you don't have to inhabit the same body you have in actual reality. A couple could become each other, for example, and experience the relationship from the other's perspective. You could transmit a more idealized version of yourself to your lover, or she may alter how she wants to look. And if you get tired of your partner, you can turn her into someone else, or you can transform yourself. You will have that option as well. And then they ask him, on whose body would you like to inhabit when that happens, Ray? And he says, that is a good question. I have not been asked that before. But I would probably be some attractive woman, he says. Ding, ding. If I had to pick one, it would be Amy Adams. I like the perky way she uses her body. And he's got a crush on Taylor Swift. I mean, come on. So is that what this upside down, backwards, and sideways gender agenda is all about? Because once we get sucked totally into the machine, and notice he mentions virtual reality, so we no longer know the difference between what's real and what's not, and be able to experience sensations, and especially a sensation that causes dopamine and all the great chemicals in the brain. You could be anybody. You could be a man, a woman, a dog, for that matter. And it'll all be great. Yeah, it'll make things just wonderful. Among other things, Kurzweil goes on to mention that he's got a Taylor Swift crush. I think she's very soulful, and her voice has gotten better, too. And that he regards death as the greatest tragedy. I think it's humanity's mission to transcend our limitations, and the most profound limitation that we have is our lifespan. On the point of living longer or forever, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates also gets a mention, as Hochman reminds Kurzweil that Gates said, "It seems pretty egocentric that while we still have malaria and TB, for the rich people to fund things so they can live forever." Remember, it's all the tech billionaires that are financing a lot of this research. Bill Gates is completely ignoring the 50% deflation rate that is inherent in information technology, says Kurzweil. You did have to be wealthy to have a mobile phone 20 years ago, and they did not work very well. They did one thing, which was to make phone calls, and they did it poorly, and they didn't fit in your pocket, damn it. But today, there are billions of them doing a million things, and they are basically free. And by the time technologies work well, they are affordable for almost everyone. And by the year 2020, you won't require as much wealth in general. No, because you know why? We're going to be a third world nation by then, 4 years from now, when the robots take all the jobs and they give us a universal basic income to make up for it all. All right, so talking about more rich billionaires trying to shape the way humanity is evolving and changing the planet. April 1st, 2016, there's an article out of Genetic Engineering News talking about Craig Ventner. Craig Ventner is a genomics entrepreneur that has been doing all kinds of synthetic biology things in his lab. I believe he was the one who first announced that he had some self-replicating synthetic cell making the first synthetic life back a few years ago. Craig Ventner, Part 2, Critical Tools and Technologies in Synthetic Genomics. Dr. Ventner invokes technologies that will cause biology to undergo a sea change into something rich and strange. Ding, ding, ding. Not the train that I am getting on, thank you. J. Craig Ventner, PhD, is founder, chairman, and CEO of the J. Craig Ventner Institute, co-founder, executive chairman, and co-chief scientist of Synthetic Genomics, and co-founder, executive chairman, and CEO of Human Longevity. In part 1 of Gens, and that's this interview with Dr. Ventner, which appeared in the March 1st, 2016 issue, He spoke about future research pathways for synthetic genomics, and now in part 2, Dr. Ventnor will discuss the types of tools, technologies, and instrumentation systems needed to accelerate synthetic genomics research. It is fair to say that even some of the basic tools needed to accelerate and advance the technology are still being developed and discovered. Dr. Ventnor says, I would say that is a great description of where the field is. We have the ability now to design new cells and modify cells to create new functions, and hopefully to modify major genomes, as with the organ transplantation program. But it is now up to people's imagination as to what will be the ultimate applications of this technology. With the availability of CRISPR, ding, 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 because they are so easy to use, I think the field will take off a lot faster than doing it totally with synthetic DNA. We have basically no competition in the area of trying to create new cells because that takes a lot of resources and tool sets that are not generally available. And one of his company's goals is to make those more broadly available to be used in new types of applications, kind of like the not-for-profit sending out 60,000 copies of the CRISPR gene editing technology all over the world to whoever wanted it, that then could be reproduced at those 60,000 labs and sent out to 60,000 more times 60,000. Yeah, just like that. We want to democratize the destruction of the planet and the destruction of biology 1.0. The crossover with humans becomes the organ transplantation work. So this is what the synthetic biology is working on, and eventually doing editing of human stem cells and potentially, in a more distant future, of embryonic cells to get rid of lethal diseases or traits. We are now scaling up genome analysis to a new level, and we are currently sequencing about 3,000 whole genomes a month with the goal of increasing it to more than 10,000 a month. And the company has only been in existence for 19 months, but we now have more than 20,000 full genomes in our database with a phenotype or clinical data linked to them. And this gives us a very different view of the human genome and the whole new ability to interpret that information, God forbid. Brave new world, people. We are now working with the insurance industry, with the pharmaceutical industry, with children's hospitals, and with cancer centers to apply these tools broadly. Yeah, and you can see how those are all going to work out well for us. The biggest advance has been the new sequencing tools. It cost $100 million to sequence the first genome, which was my genome, says Mr. Ventnor, about 15 years ago. And now the total cost is about $1,500 to sequence a human genome. And each of these high-sec X10 machines we're using is equivalent to 1,350 machines that we used to use for the very first genome and is Celera Genomics. So I'm just looking at the time, and I have about 3 minutes left. We might hop back to Ventnor tomorrow, but I wanted to take you into the present tense as to what they have done. So there apparently is a doctor named Elizabeth Parrish Younger. No, Elizabeth Parrish, not Younger. That isn't her name. Elizabeth Parrish, Chief Executive Officer and guinea pig for BioViva, which is a company that does research on aging, has announced today, and this was the 22nd, 4 days ago, that she has now become the very first human successfully rejuvenated by gene therapy. Using 2 proprietary processes, Parrish has claimed to have reversed 2 decades worth of telomere shortening, the process that leads to the breakdown of cell replications in the vast majority of living things. Telomere scores measured by using white blood cells indicate that Parrish, who was 44 years old in September, has now slowed a cellular process many scientists believe to be the root cause of aging. That makes today a big day for Elizabeth Parrish, where she publicly announced a potential cure to the disease that she feared would kill her, which was time. Parrish has become one of the leading lights of the biohacking movement by refusing to see aging as a fundamental fact of life, and she described her highly experimental gene and cellular therapies as a treatment targeted against an epidemic, sometimes called the silver tsunami. She has made it very clear that her old is a diagnosis, and what she hasn't always made clear and seems to be actively avoiding addressing are the moral, societal, and even medical ramifications of her work, as well as the science. Earlier this week, Elizabeth spoke to Inverse magazine about becoming her own patient zero and how human cells are like computers and why she is justified in evading the FDA by using herself as the experimental guinea pig. What made you realize that aging was a disease and not a normal process? Well, I'd actually gotten involved to cure childhood diseases, and she probably had a conversation with Ray Kurzweil. So I wasn't exactly entirely prepared to find out that biological aging was in fact a disease. And I went to a very crucial conference that changed my mind. I ended up at the SENS, which is the Strategies for Engineered Negligible Sentience conference in Cambridge, UK, and I became very interested in this idea that perhaps biological aging itself was a disease. And I took the time to speak with many researchers after that and found out that some of the drivers of childhood disease were in fact accelerated aging. I basically had to change my thinking to realize that the body cells are very much like a computer, and that the things that they're programmed to do eventually land up with a lot of damage over time, and that some people get damage at a youthful age, i.e. some people have programming issues, genetic problems early on. Some people are born with them and they're defective. But all of us are accumulating this damage that will eventually lead to the symptoms of the aging disease that kills us. And how do you plan to study this disease? Well, she says, I thought that one of the most important things we needed to do is start collecting human data, and that's what we were lacking, and damn these regulatory agencies getting in the way, so I just circumvented them and used it on myself, and we'll catch up there tomorrow and find out what happened to patient zero. All right, guys, make sure you stick around because it is Tuesday. Mr. Kevin Blanche is live up next, and all kinds of live radio tonight. Have an awesome Tuesday. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.